I suppose I am, in a sense, a refugee from the conventional academic kind of world. Certainly what I'm doing now started way back. I mean, it does go back 25 years, I suppose. I mean, I've always been interested in that idea of preserving genetic diversity of crops and the history of crops and all that. It goes back to my work in London. But yeah, it was at Reading where I did my PhD research that I first started to look at wheat and cereals in particular. But doing that in a conventional plant breeding department was a challenge. I mean, 90%, 95% of the department was funded by the Monsantos, AstraZeneca, all those massive agribusiness companies, and they certainly weren't interested in, the concept of genetic diversity in crops or organic farming, or any of that was certainly not on the agenda where I was. Plant breeding was, it was reductionist, narrowing. You select for certain characteristics. It's all about uniformity. That's always been the history of plant breeding. And plant breeding, for cereals, it was all based at Reading University for a century. The founder of the expert on wheat was a guy named Percival, was the first professor of agricultural botany there. So I suppose that was the tradition. But having said that, Percival was really into helping farmers. It was very hands-on, and I was trying to draw on historical information, the evolution of wheat from the archaeological work I'd done. And, growing all these old varieties and reading books on medieval farming and trying to reconstruct land races, and that just went nowhere. That was, John, you're an idiot. The people weren't using the term evolutionary plant breeding 10, 12 years ago. It wasn't a term I was terribly familiar with. It made sense, evolutionary plant breeding, but it wasn't being used. And I got very little help, to be honest. I got really fed up with the situation there, and I wasn't going to achieve. Maybe had I stayed and changed tack considerably, you were constantly being pushed into that molecular biology, DNA, GM kind of direction. And I tried to be scientific. I wanted to be extremely scientific about it all. But it wasn't really seen as legitimate science, really. Well, it certainly wasn't funded science. So anyway, I knew I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve there, so I left.